What's up, Story Sages, and welcome back to another deep dive with the Ordered Omnibus. We're kicking off January 2004 with a bang, and trust me, the new year is not giving our heroes a break. In this episode, we're diving headfirst into some brutal transformations, shocking betrayals, and the return of a hero that will change everything. We'll find out what happens with Mimic from the Exiles gets a nasty brood-sized power upgrade, and what that means for his team. We'll also witness Elektra's masterclass in stealth as she infiltrates a fanatical cult, and we'll get a glimpse into a brand new era for Wolverine. Plus, in Between the Panels, we'll be breaking down the game-changing leadership shift at Marvel Comics that set the stage for the next 20 years in storytelling. So grab your comics and get ready to witness history in the making. Files Volume 1, Issue 37. Hold on to your hats, fellow fanatics, because things just went from bad to cosmic horror bad in the latest installment. Mimic just pulled a classic comic book move. Internal parasite meets massive power upgrade meets raging through a major city. And yeah, it gets messy. So the brood embryo inside Mimic decides it's time to hatch, and our boy bolts from Reed, Tony, Ben, and Morph at the shoreline. His destination? None other than Times Square, because, where else do you go for a good old-fashioned superhero brawl? Mimic's got a twisted plan. He needs to fight to rev up his healing factor, hoping it'll burn the alien invader out. And he gets exactly what he wants. He squares off against the Exiles and even the newly formed Fantastic Four, taking them down one by one. The kicker, the nasty brood egg isn't just parasiting, it's also boosting his powers, allowing him to mimic an unlimited number of abilities from every hero he clobbers. Talk about a dangerous feedback loop. While Mimic's throwing down, Reed, Doc Ock, and Tony are back at the lab, scrambling to whip up a formula to send Mimic's healing factor into overdrive. And once it's ready, they tag in Nocturne, who tries to possess him, and while the recently realigned Thing charges in for the money shot, injecting the formula right into Mimic's eye. Ooh. Thankfully, it works. Mimic's healing factor goes wild, obliterating the brood egg and returning him to his old self. But victory comes at a heartbreaking price. During the chaotic battle, Sunfire gets trapped under the rubble of a collapsing building and tragically suffocates to death. This loss sends Morph into a fury, raging at Mimic. Morph, who deeply cared for the 20-year-old Sunfire, argues that Mimic, being a seasoned veteran, should have offed himself or at the very least told the team about the brood egg inside of him way sooner. His secrecy costs them dearly. And just as you're wiping away a tear for Sunfire, a familiar face pops in her place. Blink, she's back, presumably to fill in the now vacant spot on the team. This is a classical comic book move. One hero falls and another fan favorite steps in, providing the revolving door for superhero teams never to stop spinning. What do you think Blink's return means for the team dynamic, especially with Morph still reeling for Sunfire's death and Mimic's grave mistake? Elektra, Volume 2, Issue 29. Elektra, ever the master of her craft, has been hired by a mysterious benefactor to stop the rising tide of the chaos in an island nation of Nao. With the nation's queen already in exile, the royal princess's last hope to escape the coming storm. But the Piaka Loio and his fanatic followers, led by the watchful General Seivi, have other plans. They've cornered themselves in an unmapped mountain fortress. It seems no one's even allowed to see the prophet face to face. This isn't your typical warlord. This is a true enigma. The cultists, fueled with a zealous belief, ambush the princess's motorcade, taking her hostage, and they believe they now hold all the leverage. But they've made one final mistake. They've mistaken the decoy for the real thing. With the princess captured, General Xavier announces their advance on the city will begin at sunrise. The cultists cheer and their faith is cemented as the Piaka Loio himself makes a brief dramatic appearance. The camera holds to his feet and the crowd bows in unison. His speech is a rallying cry for vengeance and a promise that they will reclaim what is rightfully theirs and become kings. But just as the cultists celebrate their victory, we cut to the princess tied up in the secluded room. In a flash, she disarms the guard, revealing her true identity. It's not the princess at all, it's Elektra, and she's already inside the compound, having meticulously planned this ambush to get close to the prophet. The hunters become the hunted, but her mission has just become that much more complicated. Supreme Powers, Volume 1, Issue 4. General Casey of Project Hyperion arranges a tight and secret meeting with Mark's foster parents, in which he's decided it's time for Mark to lose his parents, and allowing him to rely upon America as his spiritual parent, which would help him to understand that he belongs to the country. Casey gives his token of appreciation to the foster parents for their contribution by paying them handsomely, and they go off to live under assumed names in Amsterdam. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Kyle Richmond has inherited his family's fortune, but is left with a reminder of how he became rich, as he has now taken on the vigilante identity of Nighthawk. Mark is debriefed by Casey about the Atlanta blur. He and many of the agencies in the government have been trying to identify the blur without any success, in which Casey shrugs it off and says it's probably urban legend. He presents Mark a copy of the only captured picture of the blur that can only be seen carefully by Mark to know that the blur is real. As Mark begins to leave to Atlanta to investigate the blur, his foster parents prepare to leave for Amsterdam. Hyperion arrives in Atlanta and hovers there throughout the entire day, just waiting to hear the blur. And by nightfall, he finally hears him and chases after him. Hyperion reaches up to the blur and tells him he just wants to talk. However, the blur outruns and escapes Hyperion, leaving him to realize he's not the only superhuman being. American soldiers arrive and inform him that his parents have been in an apparent boating accident. Hyperion quickly flies into the lake where his parents were supposed to be fishing. He uses his flash vision to scan the lake, finding the wrecked boat, but also killing every fish in the lake in the process from using his powers. Meanwhile, Mark's foster parents are in Amsterdam and go their own separate ways. Cut to the scene, Mark is in a serious state of distress. Thanos, Volume 1, Issue 2. Warlock and Thanos find themselves on Rigel, with Warlock attempting to convince the Rigellans that Thanos' contrition is genuine. However, before much progress can be made, a coup erupts. The Rigellan soldiers arrest the High Commissioner and then threaten Thanos. Warlock quickly dispatches his own attackers, only discovers that Thanos has already violently dealt with his own guards and vanished. They track Thanos to the planetary's central control room, where he's surprisingly making improvements to the planetary defenses. Thanos then kills the rebellion's ringleader and presents it as a service to the Commissioner. And despite Thanos' violent acts, the Commissioner accepts the offer for help, directing him to the crisis on Rigel 18. Using Thanos' advanced technology, they teleport to Rigel 18, finding it surprisingly under attack by Galactus. Thanos is unexpectedly hopeful, noting that Galactus has been there for 3 days without consuming the planet. This gives him the opportunity to fulfill his pledge to the Rigellans by convincing Galactus to leave. Now, if Galactus refuses, Thanos vows to slay the cosmic entity. Meanwhile, a shadowy observer confirms that the events are unfolding exactly as planned. Between the panels. Hey there, lore keepers, and a happy metaphorical new year. We're kicking off 2004 in a big way with this week's Behind the Panel. We were originally going to take a closer look at the art of comic lettering, but something far more poignant popped up when we looked at the calendar. A major leadership change that happened right around this time, back in 2003 and early 2004. We're talking about the departure of Bill Jemas, a guy who, for better or for worse, had a massive impact on the shape of Marvel Comics. Now, Jemas, who served as president of Marvel, was a larger-than-life character. He's the huge reason we have the Ultimate Marvel line, which helped pull the company out of bankruptcy for creating an accessible entry point for new readers. He was known for his big, bold ideas like spearheading the move away from the Comics Code Authority, pushing for more trade paperbacks, and generally shaking up the status quo. His controversial and often confrontational style created a lot of internal friction, especially as Marvel began to eye its future as a movie powerhouse. Jemas's public and sometimes personal feuds with creators and executives made him a liability as the company shifted from survival mode to long-term strategic growth. This friction, particularly with Marvel Studios CEO Avi Arad and CEOs Ike Perlmutter, led to his eventual departure, marking the end of a chaotic but creatively fertile era. With Jemas gone, the stage was set for a new kind of leader, Dan Buckley. Buckley's return to the company in 2003 was a strategic move. He was officially named the publisher of the comic division in 2004, a role he'd prepared for through a prior 7-year stint with Marvel from 90 to 97. Now, during his first stint, he held a variety of positions, from new product development to international publishing, with his last role being the vice president of marketing services. This experience gave him the deep understanding of the business side of Marvel's operations, which was precisely what they needed at that time. So, what exactly does a publisher do? Well, think of them as the top executive in charge of the entire publishing operation. The publisher oversees the business side of things, handling everything from the managing budgets and production schedules to overseeing the company's distribution and marketing. This is different from the editor in chief, who focuses on the creative side, working directly with the writers and artists on stories themselves. Now, while the role of publisher has existed for a very long time at Marvel, Buckley's rise signaled an era of stable strategic growth over the creative chaos Jemis was known for. His leadership solidified Marvel's publishing arm, laying the groundwork for many of the initiatives you see today. His vision for the company was a long term one, culminating in his promotion into the president of Marvel in 2017. Now, when you look at the stability and success of Marvel Comics in the years that followed, a lot of that can be traced back to this one pivotal leadership change. That's it for this magnificent monthly. Stay marvelous, true believers, for the Bill Jemis era. Ultimate Spider-Man, Volume 1, Issue 49. Right after leaving the Daily Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson gets a nasty surprise, a confrontation with the Enforcers. It's clear they're not thrilled about his recent articles slandering Sam Bullitt. And things are looking pretty rough for Jameson until, just in the nick of time, Spider-Man swings onto the scene, putting an end to the threats. And after a solid battle, Spidey comes out on top and in true form demands a thank you from Jameson. Their conversation quickly morphs into an impromptu interview, and Spider-Man is gone in a flash before the police can even arrive. Back at home in Queens, Peter Parker finds Jameson outside his house. Jameson opens up, explaining that he lost his son in the Orion explosion. He firmly believes that his son, the astronaut, was a genuine hero, and absolutely refuses to accept that Spider-Man is one. And after laying out his heartfelt stance, Jameson surprisingly offers Peter Parker his job back. And later that evening, Spider-Man makes an unexpected visit to the Kingpin. He wastes no time in mocking the crime boss, declaring that he's going to take him down. Wolverine, Volume 3, Issue 7. Hey ho, archivists! Our story starts off in the sun-baked deserts of New Mexico, where Wolverine rolls up on a gas station that looks less like a pit stop and more like a graveyard. One sniff of the air tells him everything he needs to know. Something is seriously wrong here. Inside, two human traffickers, Merrick and Lake, are panicking over a dead gas station attendant. Merrick, the one in charge, loses sight of Logan's shadow and in a critical error backs against the wall. And that's all the invitation Logan needs is with a single brutal snick, his right claw slices through the flimsy wall, impaling Merrick. He then goes full interrogation mode on the terrified Lake, demanding answers about the body on the floor. Lake spills everything, blaming the whole thing on Merrick, who saw the victims like mutants, not even people. Logan's fury is palpable. Lake, chattering non-stop, leads Logan outside to an abandoned trailer truck. The ventures circling around overhead are a grim sign that what's to come. Logan yanks open the back door and bam! It's a gut-wrenching sight, a pile of fresh corpses from Mexico. Nothing ticks Logan off more than innocents being preyed upon, and this sight pushes his berserker rage into the brink. While Lake babbles about Merrick's merciless methods, Logan grabs him by the throat, claws glinting, and gets a name. Ritter, a coyote in El Paso. With the name secured, Logan chains Lake inside the truck with the dead, giving him just enough air to prolong his suffering. A chilling parallel to the victim's fate. But the plot thickens back in Portland, Oregon, where the ATF agent Casey Lathrop is hunting Logan down. She questions a former military buddy of Logan's, Sycamore Blaine, flashing a photo and admitting, "I think maybe he saved my life." Wolverine rolls into El Paso, Texas, making an anonymous call to the authorities about a truck full of bodies, and then strolls into a bar named Cerveza Fria. Here, in a stunning twist, his past catches up with him. The barman, Angel, goes to get a guy named Nestor, and when Nestor sees Logan, he's surprisingly warm and genuinely grateful that Logan saved his little boy and just walked away last time. Nestor even hooks him up with the free drink. Logan cuts to the chase. He's looking for a coyote named Ritter, but the quiet hunt for answers is short lived. A news report flashes on TV, and the El Paso police confirming Wolverine's tip. A human trafficker, Lake, is in custody blabbering to reporters about a guy with claws. This is not how Logan operates, and the public fallout is an unnecessary complication. This just got public in the most explosive way possible. Wolverine the End, number 1. Out in the seriously snowy Canadian wilds, a grumpy and aged Wolverine tries to hunt, but his body isn't what it used to be. His claws are giving him grief, sticking when they should retract, and a sarcastic voice in his head needles him about getting old. He heads back to his cabin where his old friend George is waiting with a delivery and a letter, something he hasn't delivered in 50 years. The letter brings with it a shocking news of death. And later on a rainy day, Logan shows up at a funeral for his arch nemesis, Sabretooth. The priest's eulogy is wild, painting Creed as a villain who found religion and did charity work. A tear actually rolls down Logan's face as he flashes back to their brutal battles. He feels he shouldn't have come, but admits he always thought there was some final truth between them. An attorney named Emily Rand approaches Logan, telling him that Creed often spoke of him with respect and handed him a second letter. This one's from Creed himself, and later as George drives Logan home, he screams himself awake from a terrifying flashback. Weapon X scientists implanting adamantium, erasing his memories, even his name, and then pumping him full of something. This nightmare is so jarring that it compels Logan to make George follow him through the giant fence into an unbelievable sight, a massive ancient mansion. Inside, Logan wanders through the grand living room, muttering to his inner voice that he shouldn't be here. George catches up to find Logan standing there before a grave with the name John Howlett, beloved son, lost before his time, 1885 to 1897. A red Japanese book sits on the headstone. Logan picks it up, instantly knowing he lived there ages ago, but realizing whoever left the book knows way too much about him. He tries to explain to the bewildered George that this was the Howlett estate where tragedy wiped out his family centuries ago, leaving him the sole survivor, but with zero memory of it all. He suspects Weapon X, the Canadian government program responsible for his claws, has been watching him his entire life and was even involved in Creed's death. Logan's paranoia spikes and he suddenly grabs George by the throat, even suspecting him of being an agent. George, terrified, calms him down, and Logan releases him, looking around, muttering, "Weapon X, man, they're everywhere." The terrifying truth of the lifelong conspiracy has finally hit home. This one really digs into Logan's roots and why he's such a complex character. Captain America, Volume 4, Issue 20. So we're back in Captain's Nazi controlled alternate America, and the rebels are being absolutely hammered at the front gate of Stark Industries, pinned down and starting to look like toast. But suddenly, Captain America bursts onto the scene, making short work of the machine gun nest and leading the charge into the complex. But just when things are looking up, the elite Iron Men show up ready to crush their spirits. But Cap has a trick up his sleeve, tossing Henry Pym a device from Tony Stark that completely cuts the Iron Man's power, sending the armored goons crashing to the ground. Cap wastes no time rallying the resistance and pushing them hard towards the lab where Doom's time machine is waiting. Inside, the Red Skull is absolutely seething over the successful anti-Nazi uprisings happening all over the country. He's breathing down Victor Von Doom's neck, begging him to send his elite squad back in time to 1945 to snuff out Captain America before he can even become the legend he is now. As Captain's crew hits the lab entrance, they meet with a guarded, armored field. But Sue Storm fakes being a subject of a twisted breeding program, vamps the guards into opening the portal, and takes them down with extreme prejudice. Inside the lab, things get gnarly, and Hank Pym takes a bullet, sending the enraged Bruce Banner into a pure gamma-fueled rampage that smashes the controls and explodes panels right next to Doom's face, leaving him severely burned. With the Time Project halted, Don Blake arrives to tend to Pym's wounds, dropping a bombshell that Tony Stark died a hero's death. But that's nothing compared to Cap's own pure rage when the Red Skull grabs Bucky as a hostage. And at the thought of his partner dying, Captain attacks the Skull, sending both of them careening into the well where the time machine is spiraling out of control. Locked in the brutal combat, Captain America and the Red Skull are sucked into the time platform and then vanish. Gone like ghosts, but in March of 1964, the Avengers submarine stumbles upon a man frozen in a solid block of ice. They haul him aboard, and, well, you know that. Captain America is revived. From that moment on, the rest, as they say, is history, forging the timeline we know and love today. Fantastic Four, Volume 1, Issue 506. All right, my panel pundits, buckle up because with Doctor Doom out of the picture, the drama in Latveria is just heating up, all thanks to Reed Richards and his supersized ego. What starts as a glimmer of hope for a lawless state quickly devolves into a global crisis. With Doctor Doom gone, armies from Hungary, China, Russia, and the good old US of A are converging on the border, a full-blown United Nations response to the Fantastic Four essentially occupying the country. In Castle Doom, Nick Fury warns Reed to step down or face a fight, but Reed, being Reed, totally refuses, claiming he's acting independently. A clearly oblivious Invisible Woman walks in, and a frustrated Fury bails, leaving Sue demanding answers from her husband, who just tells her to follow. Reed then drags Sue down to the dungeon where Thing and Human Torch are caged up. But before Sue can even get an answer, Ben and Johnny burst out, absolutely livid because Reed apparently used the Doombots on a resistance cell they had just tracked down. And here's the kicker, true believers. Reed coolly admits it was all part of an insane plan. He intentionally released the descendants and then sent Doombots after them to make the Fantastic Four look like saviors. He then throws an absolute bombshell at Sue, telling her she was useless in protecting their kids. Ben and Johnny jump to Sue's defense, but Reed just tells them to save their energy because they have a deadline. 40 minutes until war. Horrified, Sue, Ben, and Johnny bolt for the castle, desperate to talk to Nick Fury, but this naturally is all part of Reed's grand, insane plan. They catch up with Fury begging him to hold off on the attack because Reed's clearly not in his right mind, but Fury's hands are tied. Reed blew off all of the UN warnings, and now they're storming Latveria, with Reed looking and being arrested and tried for treason. Meanwhile, Reed descends on the lower levels of the castle and starts writing a goodbye note to his family, and begins working on some mysterious machine. 40 minutes, a goodbye note, and a mysterious machine. What in the multiverse is Reed Richards plotting? And can the Fantastic Four stop a global conflict before it's too late? Next time, we're back for part 2 of our January 2004 deep dive. We'll be breaking down some of the most anticipated comics for the month, including the continuing saga of the seminal NYX series, more of Punisher's Deadly Dance, and a new saga for the New Mutants. So trust us, you need to see what's coming next. And to be sure you do that, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel to catch all this cosmic madness. What's your favorite comic series this month? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, fellow fanatics, keep your facts fantastic.